dangerous situation
More,
for our
more
democracy.
importantly, more importantly, our candidates, because former President Trump is a current candidate for the for 2024. So going after the ex-presidents is one issue, but it's a current candidate. And is that the way we want to silence political operatives? Is to trump up charges against them that are past the statute of limitation? And I think someone said it before.
Traditionally, you take it to the
They're not
debate
done with them.
stage, right? Absolutely. I agree with you. Lindsay, I saw your hand up. Go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, I kind of second that. Like I said, on the more liberal or Democrat side, like I think that's the side that my party is not. That knows it's like the poison you pick is the same poison you're served, and so if things are tough like this on someone as a politician, which is a tough job. I mean, it's like really watching this was sobering. Like, I mean, I'm in business. Like, I've been sued. We've all been sued. Anybody who makes money is sued all the time, and it's not easy. It's hard. You're spending a lot of money employing people. I mean, think of all the people the guy employs. And the mistakes he's made, and other people's mistakes. And I mean, really, when you look at the charges, to me, and I'd love to hear what other people think. I mean, I'm just trying to be like as unbiased as possible because it's like I'd hate to be like, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Jew, but I always think of like these things that are in the Bible. But what's that thing like, judge not lest you be judged with the same measure you judge. It's very difficult to, look at someone like that and not think that there's an opportunity for somebody else to make a lot of mistakes around them and then that come back on him. I mean, even as much as I don't like a lot of the rhetoric, sure, like, he said a lot of mean stuff on Twitter. He could be kind of racist. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know. But like people make mistakes, and in that kind of a position, like I just see him like my dad is in that same age group. A lot of us probably here like in that have parents in like that 70 to 80s age group that are like real set in their ways and it's hard to get through to them like about anything. But at least with him, I don't know, like before I met him, I thought he was the same way. But when you meet him, it's different. Like he's actually very teachable. I put that in my tweet. He's very teachable. He's very open to technology. Like he doesn't act like an old man. You know what I mean? He
And he's
acts
been
actually.
right. He's been right about so many things since he left office.
So this is
Well, he just was like
Keep in mind, as a
he just was
billionaire,
like not.
he,
He just wasn't like like the normal kind of person that's like stuck in the mud that you see out there that is like not open to change.
none of the people that go on these stages likes to admit the guy's got an understanding of the world that is unique. I mean, he's done business in almost every country around the world. He was pushing around Putin and pushing around Xi Jinping and the guy
But he
over in North
wasn't even
Korea.
pushing them. He's a
Well, no,
statesman. I thought he was, and I
he
loved
was
what
a
I have to
he
say.
was a statesman, and he wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, we're a superpower," and flex his muscles. And look what's happening to the United States right now.
But
We're a joke.
Brian, did you hear him the other day when he said? I loved what he said. I mean, it was almost like it's like I hate to say it, but I almost feel like he's like this very polarizing figure even for Republicans because I see Republicans acting better, like caring about police brutality and like all of a sudden, and like he also said the other day, he said like we don't need war right now. I thought I was going to die when he said this. He said we need a statesman. We need someone who's going to, make
Well,
peace with Russia. I'm going, wow, this is
absolutely.
great.
Well, first of all, he's always been that guy. He was against the Iraq War with Bush. He's certainly against this. He during his presidency, there were no wars started. Russia didn't take a square inch of real estate while he was president. We didn't fire. Hey, I don't mind being allies with Russia. It sure as hell beats them having missiles pointing at us and us having missiles pointed at them and being on the brink of what's going on right now.
so
I mean, can you
I
believe
agree.
even during the George
So
Floyd thing, he was like the first person.
it was a book written by Saul Alinsky. And what they did to Trump is they first tried to get him for campaign finance violations, dig up these trumped up charges, no pun intended, on him. And now they're getting him for what they say is concealing business expenses. And like I said before, this is just shifting us closer to what I think is a banana republic, third world country. And it's a shame because we are the most powerful country in the world, but we're only the most powerful when we're united and when there's a common truth and a common ground for all of us to come together and rejoice, essentially.
Well,
absolutely, Brian.
I'm so glad that Trump hired Ray, the head of times over. then Biden's going to come in here and look like he's an absolute saint that, works across the aisle. And at the same time, there would never be a verdict in the case. So then Democrats during the election say, well, hang on. So Democrats would the election and then
dream. Wake up.
Ending, and I couldn't hear Patrick.
Can go into that election and say, look, he was charged with all these felonies and he's such a criminal. But if this ends up going that Trump ends up be finding that he's innocent, that will blow up in the face of the Democratic Party, and that would be detrimental for them. So that's why I'm saying it would be really smart for the Democratic Party to pardon him, because then he will be always looked at in the eyes of the public as guilty.
I doubt it. I mean, well, maybe the Democratic side, but there's a lot of people right now. I think that even I've heard, I've been in these spaces, these Twitter streets here, and a lot of Democrats have even said that these charges don't make sense. They think it's, not a coincidence that it's running at the same time that they just announced the Restrict Act. And, what better, shiny object than Trump going to jail for people to not really focus on what that means, for the country. So I just want to throw that in there as well.
And they're
on
the line for
go ahead.
They're putting everything on the line for this. They're going after Trump. This is their shot, their national stage. If they blow it, that's going to be havoc on them. So that's where I'm trying to say, if you're going to go after him, wouldn't you go after him with better charges than this? So because
Atlanta's heating up.
And the Restrict Act is another unconstitutional bill that, in my opinion, is in violation of both the Fifth and the First Amendment. We can get into that as well.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, I definitely want to tap in on that. Go ahead, Storm. What were you talking about?
Themselves more than they think, especially if they can't make it stick. And I still haven't heard anybody convincingly say, I think these charges are going to stick. I think he's going to jail. I haven't heard any Democrats say that. So I think this is going to be a big, fat blow up and explosion.
Who on this stage is voting for Biden next time if he runs? I mean, who? Is there anybody that would admit it?
Not me.
Irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Well, it is. Well, no. The governance of the country is not irrelevant. It's completely relevant, and so this is what we're not hearing from the Democratic Party. What's your solution to Orange Man? We've heard all the names. What's your solution? The guy that's in there now is shitting the bed, left and right, in any and every way you can imagine. And
while you're barking across the aisle, you're going to get hit in the back of the head, man. He's going to
there ain't a damn thing. There ain't a damn thing that Biden has shown competence in. Not one thing. Not compassion. None of the things. The adult in the room. No, he's the adult in the diaper.
Why aren't you looking for a young Republican? Why are you over?
I would love one, but I don't see one.
Let's go. But hold on. So that is interesting. So I would say so, Eric. One of your, I would say the things that really drives you kind of leaning to the left is that, it's about the people, right? Like you care more about the people. And if you are able to look at a phone call, not only to this country, but abroad, everywhere, all of the people that have been killed since Biden's been in office, all of the poor decisions that have been made, all the people that are falling below the poverty line right now. There's so much that's happening that, and this is under the administration of the, I don't know what you voted, and I don't want to know because I don't want to judge you. No, I'm just kidding. But for the most part, like, doesn't that, how does that make you feel? Like, I'm just curious.
It feels like I know you are, but what am I? I mean, it sounds like we're in freaking third grade.
Oh my God,
it's ridiculous.
I'm being
You're focused.
honest.
This guy's in this. No, I am too. And what I'm saying is we're focused on the office of the presidency. That's where my head goes. And I said before, I'll say again, I have a bias against Donald Trump. I think he's a deplorable human being at the character level. So from there, I don't call him a leader, and I don't see any of the accolade that his supporters do. So from that lens and my self-awareness of my bias, What I just accountability is, and I'm an idealist to a fault. So I'll just tell. That's where I fall. I take a knee because I'm an idealist, and I keep coming back to get hit in the head. I think he gets taken out from the inside. I think you're looking at the Democrats, and meanwhile, the GOP is gonna find their soul and put a candidate in place against him.
Go
They've
ahead,
been trying
Mercy.
to do that though.
Hold
What do you
on, he
think,
might
Jay?
be a horrible
No,
man.
he's a horrible man. He's paying hush money to a porn star. I'm agree. I think he's a horrible man, but I think
Hold
he'd be.
on a second, Will. Let's let
No,
Cindy
that's Ray.
Stumpo jump in. Hey, Cindy,
This
welcome.
is this is Cindy's
Whatever
fiance.
you are, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm
Whatever you are.
Cindy's.
Come on, Cindy. Do better. Do better, Cindy.
No, right, do better, right? I'm some strange dude who just walked into Cindy's bedroom. We're just clocking it. But no, Trump, totally agree. He is absolutely, I would say, a deplorable man. Like, yeah, hush money to Stormy Daniels. Like, think about that. It's pretty bad shit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Okay.
but he did run. He did run the country, I think, fantastically for four years, and I was in the like never Trumper, not like please don't let this guy run again. But now I got to tell you, after this, I'm back all in on him. I just think these MFers need to be put in their place, and this is so bad that this rejuvenates everybody right now the other way. And at the end of the day, the Democrats could put a turnip in there for candidate, and that person's going to get roughly half the vote. So it doesn't
Ray,
even
do you
matter.
really believe it's going to energize him? Do you really believe he's going to get the
I
whole
do.
party and nobody else will challenge him from the
And
GOP?
he was weak tonight, but maybe he's
He-
exhausted. But he was a bit weak tonight. I got to be
Yeah,
honest.
I didn't think it was his best performance, but yeah, I got to tell you, no matter who runs against him, whoever runs against Trump, because I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to run. He's going to be the candidate. That's my bet right
Especially
now. I
if
got
they
to
find
tell
him not guilty.
There's no not guilty. This
Well,
is going to be
it's
horrible.
not.
He's not.
It's
Yeah.
not going to go.
This is going nowhere. This is a fart in the wind. Sorry about that. Cindy doesn't like that, but this is nonsensical. A campaign violation? Seriously? This guy literally's been on tape saying, I'm going to prosecute him 100 different times. And guess what? It's not, there isn't, someone said earlier, just like 10 minutes ago, that there's not a Democrat out there that's like saying, yeah, this flimsy at best. It's all political and people just don't like this shit. So this absolutely.
Yeah, and to your point, what Bragg said, he hadn't looked at a bit of evidence before he's saying, "I'm going to prosecute this guy." As he's running, he had no evidence, but he's running on the "I'm going to get this guy." I don't know what I'm going to get him on, but I'm going to get him. And
Yeah.
can you imagine?
Bullshit.
Can you
People don't like
imagine
this
the
stuff.
government official deciding he's going to get you before he even gets in, and he gets
Oh,
elected?
stop it. That's a talking point.
But no,
So,
no,
what's
Eric. It
interesting?
happens to be what he said,
He
and
said it 100.
more importantly, what he's doing.
Talking point. Come on, man. He said this guy Bragg is gonna hundreds. I will prosecute him. That's how it got him elected.
That's what he said.
Come
Hey,
on.
Eric, you're in New
But
York,
come on,
from what I
guys.
recall. This guy,
Yes.
this
I mean, come
DA
on, guys.
Bragg, dumbass Bragg, that's what DA stands for, is
Yeah.
single-handedly responsible for the increase in crime in New York City. Single-handedly.
So,
Let him loose Bruce. Let him loose Bruce. And
You guys
you
don't
and
believe that
I,
Donald Trump has
you and I are
anything.
experiencing,
Is that what
you and I are experiencing a lower quality of life because of this jackass who just spent $200 million today so he can bolster his own career, I guess, and repay
he's for now.
George Soros.
but you know what? You know what's a trip? Why don't we have? Well, how come the Republicans don't have some crazy oligarch, crazy foundation tax-free money that they usher in and get DAs put into place just like Soros does? How come we don't have people like that? How come the GOP?
We do, Mace. We
I
just
hope
don't
that.
hear about them.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
got
saying. Maybe.
everybody's got them.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Soros was
Mace, there
pretty
was one
clear.
thing, though, and Brian, if you don't mind me just saying this one thing, there was one thing that Trump did very well during his presidency, and that's making sure that the judicial bench, locally and regionally, were much changed in the Reds' favor. Now, with that being said, to Ray's point, because Ray brought up a good point, what happens is Asa Hutchinson announced his candidacy, and nobody even paid attention. DeSantis, nobody's talking about him except for the pardon. They're not talking about him as a candidate. So if you really want to wipe the slate clean and you really want to see a dominance, everything that's going on right now is working for Trump's favor. And if you think he's going to spend a day in jail, he's not. He's not getting convicted on this stuff. especially since it's dug up and so old and there's a statute. And you know what? You could put 34 felonious counts on there. It's really hard to make those stick, especially if you know you've got a public opinion, and then you've got a guy who doesn't have the evidence or he doesn't have the backbone to do it. Because when so many federal people looked at this and so many, you know, prosecutors said, nope, I'm going to pass. Nope, I'm going to pass. There are so many that did, and this guy decided to take it. That's a flimsy argument to start. He does not
That's
have the solid
baloney.
legal
They
ground to
ran
get
the
it.
DAs out of town in New York, Storm. Come on, Brian, tell the
I'm
truth.
talking
Where'd
about
Ben
New
Stock
York.
go?
I'm talking about
Come
Go
across
on.
the country.
look at your New York now, Eric. Everybody's just wanting to go there.
It's a mess. Listen, not, but you guys are skating over the realities in here. He pushed to, yeah, he stacked. I love the language you use. Different, Storm. When it's in the other way, it's like oh my gosh, the guy's dying, he's killing people. You talk about Trump. He stacked the courts, blocked. He did all kinds of manipulation throughout his entire course of his presidency, and now it's
Every
like,
politician
well,
does, Eric. Name
That's
one
what
that
they're
doesn't.
supposed to do when you're in
yeah,
power.
but God bless. Look at the
Biden would
Supreme
do the same
Court,
thing if he
though.
knew what planet he was on.
Oh, that's how it works. What are you talking about? And then you vote those guys out. Then the new people come in. Come on.
I mean, look
That's how
what
it works.
look what they did to Obama. I mean, we didn't get, you got a whole. It's not good to have the court lean. This pendulum
Talk about
politics is
I'm
not good. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know who's worse, either Obama or the devil himself. Let me just reset the space real quick. I want to welcome everybody to the night show. Also, just as a heads up, I put a poll at the very top because when we were asking if people are Trump supporters, I was curious to know how many people, kind of switched over after all that's been happening. So the poll is asking regarding the Trump support, never, always, or I am now. So please go up to the nest and take that poll, and I'll read the results after. Also,
How you do that?
oh, sorry. Also,
How do you
I
do it? Ray
noticed.
wants to know.
What did you say, Cindy? Sorry.
Ray wants to know how does he do I am now.
I am now.
Yeah, I am now. So, okay, there was a tweet in the thread that Cyber Journey put in there. And it's Benny Johnson's tweet as of 32 minutes ago. Or wait, is this 32? Okay, no, that was on the 22nd of March, but it's apparently where this is so I don't know. I guess this is a letter that's stating that the whole case is, but they wouldn't have prosecuted still if this meant something. But if you want to come up and talk about it, please do. It is interesting. But with that being said, welcome to the night show. We're talking about Donald Trump, his actual arrest today, and then when they unsealed the indictments, it was literally the same indictment over and over and over again. I guess they broke it up. I don't know the details around that, but it does seem like it's kind of one of those fugazi, let's just have a shiny object while we're trying to distract away from what I believe is the more important issue, which is the Restrict Act. But in addition to that, you know, I can't help but bring up. I mean, this was about suppressing this. This is what this was even listed in the indictment, and the suppression of this supposedly having potentially having implications on how the elections went in 2016. Now, when you're looking at that, and then what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop, which the Twitter files confirm, and now all of the most information, the latest information that we've gotten since then, with him and the whole Biden family getting millions and millions of dollars from China, it just seems pretty interesting because that I believe would have been more impactful in terms of suppressing it in terms of how it would have swayed the votes. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on that. And could it possibly be that if this gets dismissed, then this would be the basis for maybe them not even prosecuting Biden for that? Did y'all think about that? That's interesting, right? So let's talk about it. Go ahead, Modern, jump in.
Well, I was just, that was the exact thing that was on my mind when you were, before you started talking about that. I was like, this seems like an extreme miscalculation on the part of the Democrats because, knowing Trump, like Biden's not going to go in there and tout all the things he's done. That's not going to happen. He's going to make a couple of concessions to his activist class, friends, and the rest of the country will probably be irritated about the fact that he's ignoring inflation and all these other seemingly more pertinent issues facing the country, suppression of free speech and everything, like you were saying. But, Biden's going to go in there and he's going to do what he always does. I mean, he was the not Trump candidate when he went in the first time. The second time he's going to go on and he's just going to say corruption, corruption, corruption. And knowing Trump, he's going to turn around and he's going to say, who's the big guy, Joe? I can already hear it now. He's going to say, like, why are you taking showers with your daughter? Like all these incendiary things that he could just lob out there and not have to justify whatsoever. And everyone's going to know, like, the big miscalculation here that everyone's making with Trump, I think. And they're doing it all again, just like they did in 2016. They pushed Trump thinking that he'd be this, sort of easy candidate to just bowl over and everyone else would be pushed out of the ring. But they underestimated the guy. And by, suppressing his speech, taking him off social media, silencing him, indicting him when they're not indicting people like Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, AOC, who also committed campaign fraud, by not taking the lead on this early and then lobbing all these accusations at him and indictments, they have made him the true populist candidate. And there's no walking back from this at this point.
Remember when he brought the, sorry to jump in there, but I'm going to go ahead 2 feet.
That's okay. Hey, Doc, I was coming to you next anyway.
Yeah, anyway. Hey, who was that was just speaking? Modern. Remember when it was one of the debates, he brought in all of the women that Bill Clinton had raped into the room, and the sidelong glance that Clinton gave is still one of the, it's was a screensaver on my phone for a long time. Sorry, I just had to chime in there with your trend.
No, I wasn't going to just continue talking on forever because I know there's a lot of people here. But I just, knowing Trump, this whole debate is going to be Biden lobbying accusations and everything that Biden could possibly say to Trump. Trump has 10 things to say that are very legitimately true about Biden. He can just lob back at him. And the difference is the system was sort of holding up this veneer for Biden the first time around. And that veneer has been being chipped away for the last 4 years. And that veneer is no longer there. And so there's no, everyone in his little circles are, telling him how wonderful he is while he's bragging about eating ice cream in press conference meetings. But the rest of the country is looking and saying, what the hell's wrong with you?
Absolutely. Woo. Sorry, go ahead, Doc.
I was just going to say, I know what's wrong with Biden. I just made that one comment and stopped. I'll continue. I'm sorry. I'm just happy about what happened today and the fact that these charges were the nothing burger that I suspect and have been arguing with liberals in Mario Space for the last 10 days. I feel vindicated and validated, and I think this is all good news as far as I'm concerned. I think the people in Georgia have got to be looking sideways at this situation and going, okay, what are we going to do? What's the public reaction going to be if we bring another bullshit case? And I promise you that's exactly what's going on in Georgia. It's another fucking bullshit prosecution using a unique interpretation of the law, perverting the words that Trump actually alleged, which, of course, he was perfectly entitled to comment about ballots and missing ballots, so on and so forth, not because he was president, but because he was the candidate. And he had every right to ask the questions and demand answers and be pissed off and say stupid things. And now they're prosecuting him for it. The same thing is true with Mar-a-Lago. That's not going anywhere. Trump had the legal ability to not only have those documents, but he's not subject as the president to the National Records Act. However, Biden is, Mike Pence is, and if they prosecute Trump, I swear to God, I'm going to go out in the streets if they don't also prosecute Biden and Pence. So it's all good.
Okay, gangster. So, Doc, you're a
streets.
lawyer, right? I'm just curious. So, are you? I guess I should.
Yeah, yes, dear. I'm both a chiropractic physician and an attorney. I got my law degree when I was 50, so I got tired of breaking bones. Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? If he gets, let's just say the case gets thrown out or it goes before a judge and he's found not guilty, Would this be a basis for them to not prosecute Biden? Um, should that ever come up about the Hunter Biden laptop before the 2020 election?
No, absolutely not. This is a prosecution, a bad faith prosecution, but nonetheless a prosecution about finance, election and donations, and the managing business records.
Well, because
Biden,
they were saying that it was because, well, I guess there was a portion of it that was saying that would have the suppression of the information about Stormy Daniels, just even that part of it, that was in an effort to not sway the public's opinion right before the elections. Like, because I don't know. I mean, it came up. I was listening to Mario Space or somewhere. I had heard that was part of the whole indictment. I wasn't sure,
yeah, well,
but
you and I can talk about Mario Space in the background sometime, but and what happened today, it's an interesting story. But no, they really have no relationship one to the other. One case could not impact or be precedent for the other claim. I mean, Hunter is people are convinced to have seen the evidence, and those of us who have seen some of the evidence, but not all, a lot of us are convinced that there's a lot of fraud going on. There's a lot of money changing hands between China and Hunter, money changing hands between Hunter and Ukrainians, money changing hands between Jim Bus, the brother, in Iran. I think it was Iran. It might have been one of the other Middle Eastern countries, maybe Iraq. And no, there's a flood of information. And Marjorie Taylor Greene filed one article of impeachment back in 2021. That itself could be, they'd have to refile it, I think, in this Congress, because it's a new Congress, right? Every 2 years, they have a new Congress. So I think the bills that were filed in previous years just go by the wayside. So they refiled that to bring up that article in impeachment, and any one of a dozen more that could be brought up, have a vote and impeach him. And that could happen tomorrow. All the necessary legal predicates are satisfied, except for calling the issue to the floor and taking a vote. And I think it's a likely circumstance if Biden doesn't resign for, and he'll say incapacity or mental health reasons, which are obvious and apparent. In fact, he might even be pretending that he's a dotard, a dullard, just to have defense to all of his fraud and treason, that he was mentally incompetent and not aware of what he was doing. That's me going down the legal rabbit hole. So yeah, just a few thoughts.
yeah, but that was so long ago. He was competent back then. I mean, it's hard
No,
to
but
say.
he's an incompetent now. He could be impeached right
He's
now.
always been incompetent, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's true. But Kamala Harris could get the cabinet together, and under the 25th, if the cabinet agreed, they could remove Biden from office because of his incompetency. So there's lots of arrows pointing right at Biden's head right now. That any one of several political groups, whether they be globalists, Democrats, Republicans, or some combination of the internal part of our politics in D.C. There's not a lot of interest right now politically, in my opinion, of standing behind Biden and supporting him going forward.
So, Doc, in your opinion, I mean, is he going to last to the election? Because I think a lot of what we're seeing could very much, I mean, he can very easily claim the 25th, anybody can file on that, and he can claim the incompetence. But do you think he'll last full term?
There's certainly some very, very powerful interests that are keeping him there, that know that he's a stooge, that know that it's unlikely, if not impossible, to decide who's pulling the strings. I happen to think it's Obama. But they're perfectly protected right now and sheltered behind Biden, the fool. So my guess is that at some point it's going to be more advantageous for their political interests to get rid of Biden, bring somebody else up that could potentially be their leading nominee or candidate in 2024. Who that might be, I got no idea. I don't think they have anybody that can beat Trump. But yeah, I think that there's machinations still to come, And certainly those people, in my
I think
opinion,
Gavin Newsom, have you guys been keeping up with how much he's been raising funds, like
yeah,
on the low?
he definitely wants it. And you know his connection to Nancy Pelosi, right?
I do
He's
not.
well connected to her.
Well, he by previous marriage, Nancy is his aunt. And Nancy is the power broker that put Gavin in that seat and has reelected him, who controls the election machinery out here. The Republican Party is corrupt. I worked as a attorney poll watcher in the recall election. I know there was fraud. I took pictures of fraud. I reported it up through the GOP of California. Trolled Harmeet Dillon for a couple of years through several different accounts with a proof of the shredded ballots that were taken before 8 p.m. when the vote counting started. The trash bins full of it. I'll post it up again as we get closer to the election. But yeah, Gavin is someone they would like to push forward. But man, if anyone, he's not getting any support out of California, even from Democrats. I can tell you that.
Hey, Doc, last question, and I appreciate you, and Mays, I appreciate you letting me ask. Let's just say, are they holding on to Biden just for the election because they have seen that he can beat Trump once? Because if Harris comes in, there's no chance for her. I don't think she stands a chance in any debate and any direct election. So it's either Newsom, Harris, or Biden. Are they holding on to Biden because they think that they can beat Trump again in an election? I guess that's my question for holding on to him.
Yeah, this will take a couple of steps, but I've thought about this. I think that McCarthy and the Freedom Caucus Republicans, 17 of whom of which out of the 20, 17 out of 20 were endorsed by Trump. So people talk about Trump's failure to properly choose candidates in the 2022 election was the reason why we didn't capture the Senate or the House. And I guess there's an argument for that because candidates like Walker, not the best, but extremely popular guy in Georgia. So if whether the 25th or via impeachment, those are two of the most likely avenues that Biden would be forced and or cooperatively remove himself in that way, protecting his defenses to any legal charges that Trump or the next president would bring with the incompetency defense. And he would never get charged, honestly, if he resigned, which is, I think, why he's going as hard as he is to the wall. But to get back to your question, so that puts Kamala Harris as the president, at least for a time, and so they get to select the vice president, right? But unlike the president, when the president leaves office and has to be replaced midterm, the House gets a vote on who the next vice president is going to be. So I believe it's a majority vote. It might be 2/3, but I believe it's a majority vote. And if the Republicans stick together, they have a ability to approve or disapprove who the vice president is going to be. They're not likely, in my opinion, to put in a strong candidate who could run successfully against Trump in 24, whether that's Gavin Newsom. I honestly don't know. I can't imagine who they might pick as VP now. Harris have an accident, 6 months later, and resign for health reasons. Oh, I got cancer. Well, you probably got it from the boosters. But, that scenario, I think, is the only scenario that could lead to, being a strong candidate to oppose Trump, who would be running from the Oval Office.
Thanks, Doc. So let's get through some more of these hands, and I wanna talk about the Restrict Act, because one of the issues that I find myself kind of circling back to, even after let's just say he's in office. I mean, he wins the primary. Sorry,
Hey, Mace, it's just me. I think your microphone sounds like you're in a box. Are you in the
can you
closet?
guys hear me now?
Try to move it a little. Something's going on.
I can hear you, but it's not great.
All right, hold on. I'll fix it in just a second.
That sounds
Go ahead,
good.
Tara.
You're
it
good
does?
now. Yeah,
Okay,
that's good.
so it must have been my case. But it's just the fact that, the whole voting thing. We'll get to that. We'll get to the Restrict Act. Go ahead, Tara, jump in, and we'll go to Patrick and Jay after that.
Hey, I just wanted to say real quick, I don't know if you saw this today, but in the same vein you were talking about with distracting us from what other things that are going on right now in our government. Today, there was an article posted by the Military Times that we're sending another $2.6 billion to Ukraine. So I think that's worth looking into.
You know what? I think trying to get as much money out of here as they can into a different currency right before this shit just, I don't know. My opinion. I hope that doesn't happen, but damn. I mean, that's crazy. Thanks, Tara. Go ahead, Patrick, and then we'll go to Jay.
I love that you're bringing up the talking point of the Restrict Act because, I mean, I'm a Republican, but I'm going to give credit where credit is due. The Democratic Party is very smart and they're very strategic. They have been playing political chess for years. Anyone who thinks that 34 bogus charges is their goal is playing checkers. There is a bigger long-term goal that they've been playing for a very long time. And those charges that everyone in this room knows is not going to go through, that is not their goal. So I definitely think that there is something else going on. And then one last thought is who could beat Trump? I think Pelosi could beat Trump because she galvanized the Democratic Party. And last term when Donald Trump was in office, she was absolutely right there as the one that was fighting him. So that's a narrative that they could play again, I think. I mean, I'm not a Democrat, but I think she would galvanize that party.
Wait, you said she would go against Trump. Run that back just a little
I
bit.
was saying
I'm
that I think
sorry.
that Nancy Pelosi would be a strong Democrat presidential candidate if Trump runs again, because she was the one that was absolutely just tearing him to pieces in the eyes of the Democratic Party while Trump was the president. You know, I'm going back to that image of her ripping up the speech right after Donald Trump spoke. And I think that Nancy Pelosi could absolutely galvanize the Democratic Party, and she'd be the first woman president. So
She has a
And I've seen
terrible
her.
she has a terrible approval rating. One of the worst.
Yeah. And I've seen her F up some speeches, some kind of bad. I mean, she sat there for a minute. Like, matter of fact, I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. It was like this little clip of compilation of her mess ups in speeches. It's worth watching. It's funny. Go ahead, Jay, jump in.
I mean, I'd love if she ran for president against Donald Trump because we've wiped the floor with her, honestly. I just touched on that subject. But on the Restrict Act, I just want to touch on that very briefly. Over at American Mission, we've kind of been diving into it and uncovering some of the language behind this bill. And I'd just like to touch, under this bill, it'd form a new agency under the Department of Commerce and have the sole discretion to pick and choose which companies and products Americans can use and what they can say while using them. Also, it makes other governments' transparency laws inapplicable, including no judicial review, being exempt from FOIA and record-keeping requests. If this act passes, it will be used to attempt a ban on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The act is written in incredibly broad language and defines a covered transaction as a transaction in which any covered entity has any interest.
Okay, so you actually jumped to it without my little intro, but you did good. You covered a lot of the main points. But
Yeah.
I need to do this. So let me just rewind and let
All
everyone
right.
here know the Restrict Act is the Patriot Act times 100. So if you don't know what the Patriot Act is about, I will tell you now. It was when after 9/11, they basically put forth the Patriot Act, and everybody was kind of like, oh, of course, I'll sign that. I'm a patriot. They gave it that little schnazzy name and everything. What that gave them the right to do is to surveil all of us, the whole country, and without your permission, right? It gave kind of this open, broad, like, whenever we deem something to be, suspicious, we get to look at all your shit. We get to just basically surveil the world, the country without your permission. This is so much more than that. The areas that this has impact in terms of like open source, possibly Bitcoin, just decentralization, decentralized, um, the like, so this is an analogy kind of, but this is kind of doing with the banking. So back in 1907, there was when JP Morgan basically kind of caused some sort of bank run. He caused it by lying, and next thing you know, everybody goes, and it was a huge financial crisis. And then who came to save the day? The central bank. And their whole thing was is that because of the decentralization, that's why it happened. So the Federal Reserve came, and it was kind of like, that was going to solve the problem. So I just wanted to kind of bring that out in a comparison, because I think what's going to happen, and this is just based on, we've been doing spaces on this and lots of analysis. There are two things that I think these roll up to. So at the very first level, at the national level, this rolls up to the national cyber strategy that the White House released on March 1st. So March 1st, that was released. March 7th, the bill was introduced. Now, if you want to take that and roll it up to the global level, it would roll up to the Partnership for Cyber Crimes. And that is put together by the premier promoter of public-private partnerships, none other than the World Economic Forum. And so so this, the countries, the one that they released on the 1st, it literally aligns perfectly to the global one. And it has this is kind of, they're trying to obviously like standardize everything at the global level with interoperability and whatnot. So when they're rolling out a whole new infrastructure for how everything's going to flow, I just think that this is very dangerous. This is kind of pulling us into a situation, like I said before, we wouldn't be able to moonwalk in. So I wanted to at least let everybody know that we're talking about the Restrict Act. You need to call your representative, hit them up, email them, do whatever. I did that, and I mean, many other people have. I mean, our voices are being heard. So make sure you're doing that. Okay, I'm gonna send it back over to you, Jay, to tap in on it. And if you guys have questions, write them in the thread, and we're gonna, shuffle some people around to get other people up. I see some of y'all waving at me, but go ahead, Jay.
Were you on a treadmill, Maze? Because you sounded
No,
like you were out of breath.
I am, because I was running up the stairs right
Hey,
before we
go
finished.
ahead, skip over me real quick. I'm just putting together something to eat real quick. Sorry.
That's fine. Sorry. But yeah, no, I'd run down the stairs to get my son something. And then when I ran up the stairs, I was like, hold up a second. Is he talking about the Restrict Act? But anyway, go ahead, Modern. Or is it Modern? And well, Storm, did you want to comment on it? Please do. And then we can go to Modern
No, I
after.
just wanted to ask if you're on the treadmill. Let's go to Modern. I love it.
No, that's usually around like 3 or 4 o'clock. Go ahead, Modern.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Maze. I think a lot of people, I've said this in other spaces that we were in together, but I think it's really prescient to point out the fact that while this was going on with the Restrict Act, the first act, as we all know, was simply an act that was allegedly introduced by Mark Warner from Virginia to just simply ban TikTok. It's a rather innocuous bill. And then the White House basically said, no, let's revamp it. We'll work with you on this. We agree it's a problem, but let's put in all these general provisions. And they made it seem like the White House is really the one who is behind it all. I was about to post the Intelligence Senate Committee hearing where Mark Warner, along with all these other generals that really are too many for me to remember or recount at this point, you can just check out the video if you like or wish, are talking about the pervasiveness of Russian disinformation. And we all know from the Twitter files how that's basically a ruse in the intelligence community to expand their powers. But maybe they genuinely believed it. Maybe they were buying whatever Hamilton 69 was selling. But regardless, this has been in the works for a while, and it comes on the heels of March 20th. No, sorry, not March 20th. It happened like 2 weeks ago. The EU was introducing a similar bill, basically giving their government the exact same sort of overreaching general powers through a bill called the Scan Control Proposal, which basically was the stated purpose was to combat sex trafficking. But really what it does is it gives the EU the ability to have unfettered access to everything in your phone, every ground line, every computer that or TV, smart device that your phone, everything that is connected to your data, basically. The Restrict Act, this EU, chat scan proposal, and also Canadian Bill C-11. They all do very similar things. They're all overly general, and they all basically give these governments the ability to completely they give the ability to look into us and everything we're doing. Yes.
Well,
And then
I was just gonna say it takes it all the power and puts it in the hands of a couple of people, the Secretary of Commerce, the president, and their whoever they choose in their small little advisory group that's not elected by us, and it gives them. And this is the executive branch. It gives them the decisioning power. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, in the United States, yes. In the EU, it's given to the European Commission in charge of, I think they said it was transparency and safety. One Vera Jorev for the EU, and she also is a WEF attendee, and she was one of the people talking about how, and she made it sound like, oh, we definitely will be imposing these free speech laws, these anti-free speech laws, these censorship laws, and we will be introducing them globally. I don't think a lot of people realize that the top 5 most powerful corporations in the world have more GDP than your average European country does. I mean, they are the power in the world. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Bill C-11, Canadian Bill C-11, the Restrict Act, this scan control proposal are all being introduced within 2 weeks of each other. I mean, that seems awfully coincidental, especially when all of this was basically stated to be gospel truth in Davos not but 2 months ago.
Absolutely. That is correct. So guys, this is another thing. I just want you guys to pay attention to what's going on with the the economy. And this act is really hyper focused on the digital economy. So that's not just the crypto and that's not just Bitcoin, but also kind of surrounding the central bank digital currencies. We've talked about that quite a bit, but the Fed now, it's really interesting with the timing because initially there was a point where they actually pushed it out, but then they brought it back to this July. And so I think that they would need this in place or something. If this is the draft, then they would still need, this, I guess, whatever version of it in place prior to, I think, that rolling out. I think that there's going to be just this is mainly about having the ability and I guess unrestricted. That's funny. It's the risk to everything of the. I think everyone will be able to. They see. The thing is there's no checks and balances. There's no way that you can even put in a FOIA request to make prohibitions without the need for the president. As with the cyber executive order that preceded in the tornado cash sanctions, it also limits judicial review. So there's like this Administrative Procedure Act that kind of is like giving us the right to have a voice in these things, and it's exempting that agency. Go ahead, jump in. Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
Can I just read something real quick? This
Please,
is something I wrote a few days ago about the act. So the RESIST Act is the implementation of the Chinese social credit system in coordination with all of our intelligence agencies and the WHO's recent pandemic global treaty that Biden signed. It's the implementation of a one world government by first taking control of all and any of our data. We live in a data world. If they control your data, they can control you. It's totalitarianism, and it's the end of America. And I don't know, 327 likes, 212 retweets on an account that just had about 6,000 followers at that point. I've had no one argue with me in my characterization of this. It cannot be allowed to pass.
It can't. Absolutely. I agree with you. I would love to get Patrick up here. I see him down there. I know he's really knowledgeable. I haven't heard his take on it yet. And so Patrick, I am going to send you the invite. Hopefully you'll be able to come join us. But so yeah, Jay, did you want to jump in real quick while I do that?
Hey, Maze, you can drop me down just so
Or
you know.
Tara, I see you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Well, hold on real quick because Tara got off mic before you did, so I'm going to pass it to her real
Oh
quick.
yeah.
Go ahead, Tara.
Definitely.
I was just saying you can drop me down so you can make space for someone else.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Tara. I
No
appreciate
problem.
you.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks, Modern. Okay, go ahead, Jay. Jump in.
Just something just to add with the Restrict Act. It says that under the Restrict Act, this group or Secretary of Commerce, whoever is on this panel or whatever, they'd be able to call American citizens foreign adversaries and have you surveilled or have your liberties taken away. You'd be locked up without any due process.
Yeah, so like, are you talking about the VPN thing, or I missed?
No, just for the part. I was just saying the part where they can deem you as a foreign adversary.
Oh.
Yeah.
But not if you're a citizen. Where did Doc go? Damn. So you're saying that how would they deem you? I mean, they wouldn't just be able to deem you that. Like if you're a citizen, I think. No, see, this is the thing. I don't know if you're thinking that or that's a possibility, but don't say that's what it is if it's not factual. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't want to put the wrong information out there. I do remember that language, but I don't know if that's exactly what it was stating, is that it would supersede your citizenship, right? So I just wanted to make sure that we're accurate when we're parsing the information.
Gotcha.
So you don't know?
No, I mean that just had that written down as a note.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, sorry, it wasn't like affirmative. It's just something that I had written down as in my notes.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I don't know that would be able to supersede. I just want to make sure that we're always, parsing it. We can say that might be something we think it is, but yeah. So also another thing that I have my little notes, which are chicken scratch, so I always kind of preface it with, I hope I'm reading this right now. But the IEEPA Berman amendments, they are a statutory carve out. Let's see, what does it do? So there's like something with that had come out a while ago. Let me kind of organize this, but in the meantime, Alberto, welcome to the stage. Jump in.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I just had a question. So I haven't been following the Restrict Act a lot. I have seen some headlines and I've heard about it in a few spaces. But my question was, where is it as far as, in the process of being passed? Like, what's the next steps? Where are we right now? That's my question.
That's an excellent question. So it's been read twice and it's being sent over to, hold on, I have the exact status. One second. So it's being sent over to be, I think, read again and then voted on. Okay, so hold up. Oh, that's because I have crypto in that. Okay. The status says that where it's summary. I'm getting used to like looking at bills. This is not my thing, let me tell you. Okay, last action. It says Senate on they read it twice and referred it to the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. And then there's a link that somebody sent me that is for tracking this, and I have it somewhere in my DMs and my thing. I'll throw it up in the nest. But
So,
you can always
to
click that to see the status.
that, yeah. So, does anybody know like when will we know like what's going on with this, if it's gonna pass or not?
Unfortunately, I will say that there's a lot of support for it. I mean, we've made some
It
noise,
it
but
it better not pass. That's a problem, a major problem.
so have you reached out to your representative, Balance?
I have indeed. I did today. Actually, a few of
Okay.
them.
Yeah, can,
Not even my own.
And so but just to answer your question, Alberto, you know, I I'm just, I can't be that fake optimist in this situation because of what I know. And that's the need that they have for this might really supersede a lot of things. I mean, I'm hoping for some sort of divine intervention, but it does seem to have a lot of support from it's a bipartisan bill. And we got America Mission that's running 24/7 around the clock, not only recruiting people but reaching out to everyone. I mean we've definitely made a lot of noise. I just it's hard to tell. I don't know what they would do if they don't have something like this in place by a certain time frame. It's kind of like that timing. So I don't know. It's very vague too. I think that they might go through another iteration, like another version of this. And so that might buy us a little bit of time. But fundamentally they're gonna get something in there. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all I had to ask. You can appreciate your answer, and you can drop it down now.
Thanks, Alberto. Go ahead, Balance, jump in.
Thank you so much, Maze. So I sent this over to a few of the people at American Mission. I sent it to you and name redacted. There's a, I look for both sides of the political spectrum to try and gather, what the perspectives are to see how the different issues are being talked about. I know it's an expensive additional time, but I think that it's worth it when you start to see what language is being used, what vernacular is being used when describing these particular bills. So there's an article in Lawfare that talks about not just the Restrict Act but also the Data Act. So there's two bills. The Data Act also is troubling. And you would actually you on the transactions identified in the commerce identification represents at minimum an indirect regulation of informal material and personal communications. So essentially what they're saying, and that exceeds the IEEPA's express limitations. So ultimately, and also they went back at it again in the U.S. District
If
Court
you could frame that in like just a tad bit of a less technical verbiage, just for those of us.
It gives the president power to protect Americans' data from being shared, imported, or exported across globally. So, and that's ultimately what was cited by TikTok against the court cases that came up when the Trump administration had tried to outright force a sale or ban TikTok. Also, Maryland v. Trump in 2020, that was when the users of TikTok, it was brought well, they say it was brought on by the users of TikTok, but that where they sued the Trump administration, for pushing forth with a potential ban. They're just trying, they tried a little bit with the Data Act. So what I would submit to everyone is to take a look at the Data Act. It points to 15 CFR 7.2, which is the Treasury Department's final ranking on Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act, and its expanded authorities. So what does that all mean? Ultimately, it means that if information has personally identifiable information that's focused on finances, health, and location, that it should be restricted. So that's essentially what the Data Act does. Senator Warner stated in a tweet not that long ago that he was troubled by all of the misinformation going around. I don't have the tweet in front of me, but stating that he can't just outright ban TikTok because it's a business, blah, blah, blah. And so they have to do this workaround. There's no question with respect to the Restrict Act, which is the more comprehensive and more troubling one, that it essentially establishes a framework for the Secretary of Commerce to review covered incidents, foreign-linked ICTs for national security risk, and develop options. So what are those options? In the actual act, it states that they can bring in, we have laws against lobbyists going in and assisting with the creation of legislation, but what happens all the time, lobbyists come in and they assist with the creation of legislation. So ultimately, this act allows for that. So who would you guess would be the best group to come in and say, yeah, TikTok, man, there's some nefarious things. And how about this other one over there that's, this one Rumble or whatever? That would be the donor class of social media that's ultimately providing funds for some of these campaigns. I'll just leave the rest to your imagination or your base of knowledge. So tying this off in a pretty little bow, the Restrict Act is bad, really, really bad. The Data Act is bad, but not great. With respect to there's definitely that. You have the notion of, distract and overcome opposition. So there's one Maze that I just share with you, and the rest of you is, and this is the last point, is in the actual Restrict Act, it talks about the facilitation of the use of technology to be able to abate any of the, I don't have the language in front of me, my apologies, but abate the ability to be able to break the law. Breaking the law meaning anything that's now against the law, should it be brought into law, made law. And one of the ways of doing that is the use of a VPN. So I will put forth a point that hasn't been made at all that I've seen, at least on Twitter or any other social media, is this. Can you imagine that this becomes law and out of nowhere your VPN disappears off of the, I am an Apple user, so all I know is the App Store. I don't know even what they call the Google Store, but let's call it the Google Play or something, Google App Store. Your VPNs likely could potentially disappear because Apple would be, by facilitating your ability to use a VPN, they would be potentially in breach of that
Breaking the
law.
law. Oh my God. You're the only person that's brought that up, actually. And Mind
So
blown.
so they would be essentially facilitating the ability for, as they would define based on the restrict law, nefarious action, or that's
Oh, so you
subject
know
to
what?
up to 20 years in jail and $1 million fine.
Let me just
Per
tell you
event,
how
per
on point you
incident, by the
are.
way.
One second. Let me just tell you how on point you are, because the National Cyber Strategy, which was released a week before this bill was proposed, it's got these different pillars, and one of which, the whole purpose of the strategy, or I guess one of the objectives, is um, to how did it say? Basically like shift responsibility. So really it is in essence taking some of the responsibility off of the users as well, because the language is so strong about the tech companies. So the tech devices, the tech companies, I mean, so absolutely, if Apple does not necessarily, if they facilitate the ability to have a VPN. I mean, so it's going to require them to make a lot of changes too, and balance. Nobody else. I've been doing spaces on this for 5 days, okay, and I'm talking about very long spaces. One was like 19 hours, no bullshit. And no one brought that up, and I think that's a keen observation. I'm going to definitely pass it along to America Mission. But you
I
know,
would submit. I would submit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mace. I just have one
no,
final
well,
point on that.
I can't. I really want to just emphasize to everyone how bad this is, but I'll wait. Go ahead.
I would submit that everyone just look at the manner to which with respect to the vaccines, regardless of what your opinion is on, COVID vaccines. I would submit that you look at the way that they shifted, the way that OSHA shifted the responsibility toward corporate America, stating, look, it's on you guys to they sort of had to mitigate risk or to mitigate. So ultimately, by them doing this to Apple and Google and I mean, think about the manufacturers that allow apps to be put on your laptop. So Microsoft or whoever, there's the potential that your VPN could potentially